I want to share an exciting update in my life. Since the last time we got together for the 2014 conference in Nashville, I finally completed my PhD. Yes. Thank you, but I know what some of you are thinking. It's about time. 7 years later, yeah, it's about time. I defended my dissertation in 2015 on April Fool's Day, no joke, and I passed, no joke. So there I was. It was the light at the end of the tunnel and the beginning of my next culture change adventure, but then I stumbled upon a shocking decree in a blog post written by Dr. Bill Thomas. He said it's over. The culture change movement is over. That's right, pack it up and go home, because it's over. Well, shoot, I thought, well, what am I going to do now? So I poured myself a rather large glass of wine, and I sat down and I gave it some thought. And you know, I had to agree there does seem to be a big problem. Think about it. Sure, a few amazing people have changed things within their organization, a large number of whom are sitting in this room today. But let's face it, after 3 decades of the so-called movement, deep systemic change has yet to occur, and we've tried it all. Some have worked at a policy level for tighter regulations and increased penalties, the bureaucratic iron fist of culture change. Some have dangled the carrot of the business case, the utilitarian approach to culture change. Some have done quality improvement and called it culture change. Some have worked to generate empirical evidence to demonstrate the efficacy of what are essentially human rights. And one of my favorite experts spent years shaking his cute little lamb tail in an effort to inspire change. Yes, my friends, we've tried it all, and yet despite the actual suffering of real people every day, the vast majority of providers do not seem motivated to change, and so it does seem logical to conclude that maybe it's over. But I don't think the culture change movement is over. I think it needs to begin. An actual movement, and it's about time. Now hang with me. I know some of you are looking at me a little funny right now. Hang with me, and I'm going to support this bold statement with 3 beliefs that have been inspired by 5 pretty radical dudes, beginning with this guy. This is Jürgen Habermas, a German social theorist who inspired my first belief that the dilemmas of long-term care and the culture change movement itself are rooted in the dilemmas of modern life. According to Habermas, modern societies are comprised of 2 basic spheres, the life world and the system. The life world represents social interactions of people in everyday life. It's produced through communication, mutual understanding, and shared decision-making or consensus. The life world is the place where culture is diffused and renewed, where social lives and solidarity are achieved, and ideally it's the place where personalities are shaped through socialization. But in the wake of industrialization and modernization, as populations grew, coordinating our lives through good communication became increasingly difficult. I mean, after all, there's only so much time in a day. And so in response, we developed the system to hold society together, and ever since we have systematized darn near everything. Here's a quick example. Dinner at my house, life world. Dinner at McDonald's, system. How I met my husband 4 years ago at Eden's Got Talent, definitely life world. My dating life prior to meeting Peter, definitely the system. Oh, bad memories. You see, the system has a different logic than the life world. In the place of human reason, the system has this clever little mode of thought and action called instrumental rationality. Its aim is the most efficient means to an end, the quickest fix for any given problem or task. The system is driven by money, power, and a whole bunch of experts who, thank goodness, will just tell us what to do so we don't have to burden ourselves with good communication. Shoot, we don't even need to think for ourselves. The experts have it all figured out, and to aid us in managing our lives and in managing the lives of others, they've provided a number of time-saving products, such as clearly articulated formulas for success, regulations and inspection protocols, reimbursement systems, staffing models and timetables, standardized assessments and measures, evidence-based practice protocols, and if none of that works for you, you can just hire an expert to tell you what to do. Does this sound familiar? It should. It should, because the culture of long-term care and even the culture change movement itself is dominated by instrumental rationality and experts, and I think that's a problem. You see, according to Habermas, certain social pathologies occur when the structures and the patterns of the system invade, displace, and even destroy the social life of the life world. For instance, the plagues of loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. Add to that the plagues, a loss of meaning, the breakdown of rituals and traditions, the feeling that existing policies, practices, or situations are irrational, unjust, or just plain stupid. The increased feelings of discouragement, disengagement, and demoralization. Yes, my friends, the culture of long-term care is a breeding ground for these pathologies experienced by elders, families, and professional care partners alike. Now let me tell you about another radical dude, French philosopher Michel Foucault, and my second belief that within our systematized lives, that expert cultures are the primary culprit of human suffering. Yes, I've heard of the Enlightenment. I understand that expert cultures have given us many important advancements, but we need to keep the experts at bay. Not only does their instrumental rationality lose its magic when it's inappropriately applied in the realm of the social, but experts also tend to rob people of their critical potential, and they breed a culture of passivity and dependence as people turn to experts for the quick fix, the recipe, the answer. Oh, just tell me what to do. Give me the thing, the tool, the assessment. Tell me what culture change is, and I will implement it. The life world of long-term care and the culture change movement itself have become colonized by far too many experts and their discourses, which control and exclude the experiences and forms of knowledge held by elders, their families, and professional care partners. As a result, people are treated as objects to be manipulated or dominated, or as passive recipients of benevolent but paternalistic change strategies, rather than as decision makers and citizens. But that's not all. Expert cultures also lead to increased silos, as each expert discipline tries to protect a certain turf. Rather than bringing people together, the disciplines are increasingly divided. Consider how many specialized disciplines work in the context of long-term care. This morning in the shower, I counted 25. Now, how would you like all of those experts in your home? Each expert discipline corresponds with its own expert discourse, which is used as a resource in the exercise of disciplinary power, which tends to transform people into objectified subjects and ties us each to an identity, and is often a defective one. This is what Foucault meant by his famous dictum that knowledge is power. He meant that the disciplines produce knowledge, which produce subjectivity, which produce power, which produce more knowledge, and so on in a mutually reinforcing manner. Today's struggles, according to Foucault, and I happen to agree, are in opposition to the effects of power linked with knowledge, competence, and qualification. Struggles against the privileges of knowledge. Now, if we apply this lens to the culture change movement, then the quest for change requires us to break free of the expert discourses that structure and perpetuate it, and to seek instead alternative sources of knowledge, those that have been excluded and ignored. This leads to my third belief in this radical dude, and it's not Jerry Garcia. This is Paulo Freire, a Brazilian philosopher and education theorist, and Freire said, "Any situation in which some people prevent others from engaging in the process of inquiry or change is one of violence. To alienate people from their own decision-making is to change them into objects. I share this conviction, and I believe it applies across the board in all situations and most certainly to the culture change movement. Any change initiative that fails to engage people as authentic participants in all aspects of the culture change process is simply not a culture change. So here's my third belief, inspired by all three of these radical dudes. Culture change calls for a revitalization of the life world. Some people say that long-term care is a broken system, but I argue the chief problem is that long-term care is treated as a system, and that systems thinking or instrumental rationalities and experts have invaded the living, breathing life world of long-term care like a parasite. We don't need a better system. Albert Einstein said, "No problem has ever been solved with the same consciousness that created it." Culture change calls for a change away from the system and toward human reason, honoring the experiences and the knowledge of community members. All people and all groups have a right to speak for themselves in their own voice and to have that voice accepted as authentic and legitimate. Culture change calls for a revitalization of the life world. That is a returning of inclusive networks of communication among actual people who share their life experiences as they work together toward a better tomorrow. And through this collaborative action with others, we can develop a greater consciousness of the conditions in which we find ourselves, and with a range of meanings, instead of a single authoritative interpretation, address the question, where do we go from here? Drawing on the words and wisdom of another radical dude, culture change pioneer Barry Barkin. He said, "The solution is a real community in which people know each other and have role and identity, and where individually and collectively, people have a voice and a choice in the small and large decisions that affect their lives. This is an achievable reality, and it's about time." So what about the expert? Are we all out of jobs? No, not at all. But our role does change. According to Foucault, and somewhat ironically, our role is to fight against the privileges of knowledge and to help open a space for resistance and local action. Talk about a culture change. As I conclude, I want to turn to one more radical dude, Dr. Bill Thomas, who says he is tired of shaking his cute little lamb tail in efforts to inspire change. And today, he describes his new strategy as the way of the tiger. The way of the tiger, which he defines as an aggressive, proactive approach to change. Dr. Thomas is calling for a new era of local, community-oriented engagement to help engage, educate, organize, and support elders and their families in their own change efforts within their own communities. This is culture change by the people, for the people. I love Tiger. Yes, I love Tiger. Tiger helps us escape the iron cage of modern life, to release ourselves from the clutches of a dehumanizing system. Tiger lives in the life world. We live in the life world. Elders in long-term care live in the life world. So let us gather our ambush of tigers and release a collective roar. Roar!